This presentation of Lion Tracks is made possible through the kind support of Tangipahoa Parish Tourism, your guide to the crossroads of Louisiana.
Tangipahoa Parish is home to the strawberry capital of the world and the premier destination for family fun and adventure. Whether you're looking to visit one of our historic museums, grab a bite to eat at our amazing restaurants, or attend an exciting local event, there's always something to do in Tangipahoa Parish. Tangipahoa Tourism is proud to support the Southeastern Channel in its mission to educate and inspire young media professionals right here in Tangipahoa Parish, the crossroads of Louisiana.
Welcome to Line Tracks, your headquarters for the latest inside information on line athletics. I'm your host, Jaleel Hutton, and with me today is Lady Lions basketball head coach, Jeff Dow. How you doing, Coach Jeff?
I'm doing well, Jaleel. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, Coach, this is your first episode of Line Tracks and your first season here at Southeastern. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a basketball coach in the first place?
Sure. Well, as far back as in high school, growing up in Medford, Oregon, I played basketball, and I always knew I wanted to be a basketball coach. I didn't really know what level, men, women. This is 1984 at that point in time, so I wasn't really sure how to go about it. And really, here we are, 36 years later, I'm going into my 36th year of coaching college women's basketball. It's literally all I've ever done. And, I knew, as far back as at high school, and I went to college, University of Oregon. Obviously, basketball is always my favorite sport. Loved everything about it, the strategy, developing players, obviously, and then, as I learned more about it, of course, the relationships that you develop as well, too. But it's never dull. There's always a new challenge that comes with it. And like I said, it's really been a pleasure to have this to be my career for 36 years.
Right. So you've been coaching, what I've read about you, you've been coaching since you were 24 years old. Is that correct?
That is correct. And
you've coached at many different colleges throughout the years. But for the last 6 years, you've been coaching in the Southern Conference with the University of Incarnate Word. So with you being here at a new school and a new program here in the same conference, what are you looking to achieve throughout your time here at Southeastern?
Well, obviously, it's a very unique situation. Of course, everybody's aware of the transfer portal, which is really kind of changed the dynamic of how you recruit and how you build your program. Over the years, we've typically always relied on signing high school players, and then you might have a transfer or two to kind of fill in a gap. I feel like that era has probably changed, forever potentially, and obviously that is certainly the case here. At UIW, in the 6 years that you alluded to, we built that program largely by signing high school players that were with us for 4, in some cases 5 years, if they got the COVID bonus year. And now, we're in a situation where almost the entire roster is brand new. We have 13 new players, which is certainly, in the course of my career, is very unique. I mean, typically at most you might have 6 or 7. So I think for this first year, you're really, as cliche as it sounds, is trying to lay the foundation for what you want to be about in future years. We have 3 seniors. So, in theory, we'll have 10 or 11 players coming back. We'll see how all of that shakes out. But just as much as anything else, trying to develop the skill set of everybody we have, get them competitive, get them understanding the way that we want to play, going forward, both offensively and defensively.
Right. So last season, Southeastern had a really big fan base for women's basketball. Have you received any feedback from any of the fans or know what the fan base is like since you've been here?
Yeah, it's been very positive. Obviously as an opponent, on 5 different occasions, I came here to, Hammond America, as being a head coach at UIW, and was certainly always impressed with the support, that they got, even as an opposing coach. And I've alluded to this before in some of my other interviews. We had some epic battles, with Southeastern. Just a few years ago, we lost a game in triple overtime. It was just an incredible game. But so I've always been impressed, with the fan support. Have actually played Southeastern twice, in the conference tournament. This past year in the semifinals. Of course, going back to 2022, UIW, we played Southeastern in the championship game when we beat them in overtime to go on and play in the NCAA. So, but everybody's been very welcoming, very supportive of myself, our family, and the staff as well, and really just trying to offer any kind of help that they can provide. So that makes you feel good, obviously, as a new coach, and again, it's very much I would say a college town. A lot of what revolves and Hammond revolves around Southeastern Louisiana, and that's certainly great from a recruiting aspect, and I think also just for the experience of our players, our student athletes, to enjoy that piece of it as well.
So when you first came here to Southeastern, you had to build and recruit to what looks like a whole new team. So with this new team, how do they differ from any of the other teams that you coached throughout your career?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, typically in the past at UIW, as an example, we were probably signing 3 or 4 high school players every year. And then, of course, each year, is when they came back, they would get a little bit better. And that was kind of the foundation of our program was, the high school recruits. In fact, just a couple of years ago, maybe arguably our best team at UIW won a school record 19 games. 14 of the 15 players we had signed out of high school. It couldn't be more different, than where we're at right now. Again, getting the job in April, having so many spots to fill, realistically, you're going to probably have to lean on transfers, which is what we did. We have junior college transfers, Division I transfers, NAIA transfers, so unique in terms of what I've done in the past. We've got a little bit of an international flavor, a young lady, Lehi Azuri, freshman from Israel, another one from Australia, and Aisha Martin. So different. In terms of the makeup of the roster, probably a little bit smaller, what we typically are. Again, recruiting is tough as it is in the late period in April and May, especially when you're trying to piece together an entire roster. But it's really hard to get post players. There's just not a lot of them out there. So we probably leaned into signing more guards and wings than what we typically have. But so you asked about, how this team might be a little bit different. There's a lot of times we might have 4 guards, on the court and 1 forward and maybe not even a post type. Probably out of necessity, we're going to have to shoot the 3, more often than what I have, and certainly more often than what the fans that have been following Southeastern Louisiana the last couple of years. But, you obviously just got to, capitalize on what you do have. And like I said, I do think we have a lot of good guards and definitely can shoot the 3.
Yeah. So who are a few players that fans may want to keep their eye on this season?
I mentioned Lehi Azuri, very unique. She just turned 21 in the middle of August, but she's been playing professionally for the past 4 years in Israel. So she's been playing at a very high level with WNBA players, against WNBA players. So she's obviously not your typical freshman. It's unique. Also in that, yes, she is a freshman in part because of the military commitment that boys and girls coming out of high school have to make. So she had a 2-year commitment to the military in Israel. So that is one of the reasons that led her to being considered a freshman. Very talented guard. She could play the point. She could be a 2 guard. Really has the ability to get to the rim, but also a very good 3-point shooter. Of course, again, not your typical college freshman just because she's played so much professionally. Plus, she's played in international competitions as well, so unique. Another one is one of my former players at University of the Incarnate Word, Aaliyah Collins, also known as Puff. So Puff was with me for 2 years there. Her second year at UIW, she actually led us in scoring. She was second team all-conference. So, again, she's played a lot of college basketball. Those two certainly on the perimeter. And I would also add probably another UIW transfer, and Aaron McKenzie, who was with me this past year as a freshman. So kind of a small forward, power forward type player. But, we're still obviously working on the roster, developing the depth that we're going to need as we go into the regular season, which is going to be here quickly. So.
Now don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Lion Tracks.
This presentation of Lion Track is made possible through the kind support of Tangipahoa Parish Tourism, your guide to the crossroads of Louisiana.
Tangipahoa Parish is home to the strawberry capital of the world and the premier destination for family fun and adventure. Whether you're looking to visit one of our historic museums, grab a bite to eat at our amazing restaurants, or attend an exciting local event, there's always something to do in Tangipahoa Parish. Tangipahoa Tourism is proud to support the Southeastern Channel in its mission to educate and inspire young media professionals right here in Tangipahoa Parish, the crossroads of Louisiana.
So, coming to a team that won the Southern Conference title in 2023 and made it to the conference final for last season, what was the main focus during this offseason and camp with these new players as far as getting back to the top of the Southland?
Well, again, you're trying to, and it's the nature of the portal. You're trying to quickly assemble, players and make them a cohesive unit in a short period of time. I would ask for patience from everybody in that regard. Obviously, when you have 90% of the roster is essentially brand new. I think we have 4 players total in the roster that have any Division I basketball experience. And a couple of those, they only had 1 year Division I experience. So, it's very much you're just kind of trying to build it on the fly, figure out, different players' strengths and weaknesses in terms of how you can utilize them or where they fit in terms of what we do offensively and defensively. So it's going to have a different look, than certainly what the fans have been accustomed to from watching the women's team play the last couple of years. Again, as an opposing coach, I was very familiar with, their style of play and Alexius Horn and Lexi Alexander and some of the other players that they had. But so it's going to look different, in that regard. But, right now as a coach, as we stand here today, again, a couple of weeks away from the season opener, we've always tried to hang our hat on the defensive end. I've always tried to have that be our identity. So trying to get that across, as much as anything. Offensively, as I mentioned earlier, probably going to have to shoot the 3, a lot more. But, right now I'd probably say we're maybe a little bit, the offense might be a little bit ahead of the defense, to kind of use a football term. But we're getting there.
All right, so are there any specific games that you are looking forward to this season in and out of conference?
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, obviously out of conference in no particular order. 3 that come to mind, of course, are LSU, Baylor, and University of Texas at Austin. And all 3 of those, arguably you could say their ceiling is making it to the Final Four. They're going to 3 of the most prominent women's basketball programs in the country. LSU is our second game of the season, so on Thursday, November 6th. So that's going to be a tough one, of course. And then also throw Arkansas into the mix. So it's a tough slate. Needless to say, it should prepare us as we go into Southland Conference play. Within the Southland, of course, there's my old school, UIW, which the overwhelming majority of that roster are young women that I signed as a head coach and then, of course, coached them for the last 2 or 3 years. So, certainly on a personal level, that's obviously going to be a big game. And they're going to be among one of the favorites, I would think, to win the Southland just with the amount of talent that they have returning. Stephen F. Austin, of course, who won the tournament championship last year, knocking off Southeastern in the championship game. I don't know that they ever rebuild. I think they just reload. They've got a talented team again. And, I think there's a few others that, Lamar is always kind of a traditional power for sure. And then, of course, there's McNeese State. Obviously McNeese essentially has the roster that just played at Southeastern Louisiana. And then, Ayla and I, of course, go back a long ways. They're going to be a tough team, of course. But so it's part of it also where it's going to be unique too is you also have a lot of new coaches, within the league. Houston Christian, new head coach, obviously UIW, A&M Corpus Christi, myself at Southeastern. So, some of it with the new coaches, you might not have a familiarity with how they want to play, and then also, again, as I keep referencing, the transfer portal. Sometimes you don't really know what teams have until you have a chance to watch them play in November and December.
Right. So is there anything else you want to say to the fans about this upcoming season?
Well, I hope they enjoy, watching our team play. I do feel like that teams that I've been associated with, traditionally have always played hard. They defend, they play unselfish. I think most fans can wrap their heads around that, and be supportive. And again, we typically try to lean on the defensive end. I've always feel like that if you really defend, you'll give yourself a chance regardless of the opponent. Admittedly, it's going to be a work in progress. Like I said, you've only got 4 players with any kind of Division I experience, and you're going to have probably 2 or 3 freshmen that are playing big minutes, and their first taste of Division I college basketball. So again, hopefully it's a team that everybody can rally behind. They've done great thus far in what we've asked them in terms of community service. Academically, they're off to a great start as well. So we want it to be a program that's very well rounded, obviously, both on the floor and off the floor. And certainly the challenge for us is can we get it to the point where we are consistently top half or top third of the league. Obviously, if you do that, you're always going to be in a position to make the conference tournament and possibly make a run. And, that was, we kind of had got to that point my last 3 years of UIW where we were always finishing the top 4. You got a chance if you can do that. You've got a chance to potentially play in the postseason and, like I said, make a run in the conference tournament. So, like I said, it's going to take time, as we continue to recruit, develop the players that we have, but we're excited. We're certainly up for the challenge. Got a great staff, and Ross Ricks and Kiana Keys and Reagan Bolton. I think we all complement each other well, and a good group of young women that I think is we're probably a little bit under the radar right now. Not a lot of people know, obviously, with so many new faces, but I think they're excited to get out and play.
Now, thank you for being here with us, Coach Dow, and talking with us.
It was my pleasure, Jaleel.
Yeah. Now, that's about it for this episode of Line Tracks. For more information on Line Athletics, check with us at the southeasternchannel.com or go directly to lionsports.net. I'm Jaleel Hutton, and we'll see you next time.